All right, guys, for today's mobility video, we are hitting posterior chain. This video is going to be around 8.5, 9 minutes, so this will be a great addition to your day to get back of your legs, upper back, lower back feeling really good. Okay, so we're going to start with a right half split. So coming onto hands and knees, right foot's going to come forward. We want to make sure this is right in front of our nose here, so you don't want to be too far out to the side, right in front of your nose. If you want to start in a tall kneel here, thinking of as we come down, hinging at the hip, keeping that chest forward almost like we do in a deadlift instead of rounding through that upper back. So toes are starting pointed straight up to the sky. And as you start to relax into this stretch with each exhale, trying to get those hands nice and flat on the ground. Each exhale, again, we're going to try to sink those elbows down towards the ground a little bit. So instead of bringing your top of your head towards the ground, you want to think elbows towards the ground, chest close to the thigh. Here you can come up out of that stretch a little bit, point those toes inwards, so towards your left side, and then again, hinge at that hip. You should feel this in that outer side hamstring a little bit more, the lateral hamstring more than the medial. Another cue that you want to focus on while doing this stretch is pulling your left hip forward and your right hip back. So keeping those hips nice and square instead of letting that left or right hip sink forward. Good, now we can do the same thing and turn the toes out a little bit, and again, sink into that stretch. Awesome, and coming out of that stretch, coming onto two knees, we're just going to switch sides, so over to the left side. Again, you can start in a tall kneel, left foot out in front, toes are pointing straight to the ceiling, thinking again of hinging at the hips, like you're bringing your belly closer to your thigh. Shoulders should be down and away from the ears here. And with each exhale, again, we're sinking nice and deep into this stretch. Think of that left hip pulling back this time and that right hip going forward. Now again, we're going to vary those toes, so bringing your toes towards your right side and then sinking into that stretch again, feeling this on the lateral hamstring. And then if this gives you a little bit of pain in your back knee, with kneeling on that knee for so long, definitely think of using a pillow under the knee or folding up a mat under the knee. Just because this is a long time just directly on that kneecap. And let's go ahead and point those toes out now, so away from us, and sink nice and deep into that stretch. Good, and bringing that left leg back, we're going to come on all fours here. So hands and knees. We're going to rinse through a few cat-cow positions here. So with our cat position, we're tucking chin to chest, top of the head's coming towards the ground as you round through that upper back. So we're thinking of pushing our shoulder blades apart here, creating lots of space between and then pulling that belly button up and in. Tailbone is rounding down towards the ground. And then we're going to go complete opposite. So drop that belly down towards the ground here, let it relax. Top of the head comes to the ceiling. Same with our tailbone, shooting up nice and tall here. And then take a nice deep inhale, bring it back to that cat, really push between those shoulder blades. And nice deep exhale, sinking into that cow. And bringing it back up to our cat. And cow. It's really important here to let that pelvis tip forward, so sending the tailbone nice and high to the ceiling and letting the belly relax, so that when I cue in class, neutral spine, it's going to be halfway between that anterior pelvic tilt in your your cow, and your posterior pelvic tilt in your cat. So bring it back up into our cat. And down into our cow. And last time into our cat. Good. For this last one, we're going to bring it up to our feet into a standing forward fold. So for this one, we're just going to start with feet hips width distance here. And you're going to think hinge at the hip again. So hinging at the hip, you can have a slight bend in the knees here, but the goal is going to be to reach those hands towards the ground, letting the top of the head hang heavy towards the ground and just letting your upper body relax. If you can't reach the ground, resting on shins is a really good option here, just making sure you're not pushing back into those knees, still keeping a slight bend there. We're just going to hang out here for a few seconds, taking nice deep breaths. And from here, we'll walk our feet out to mats width distance, so a little bit wider than your hips. And again, hinging at the hips, coming into that nice deep forward fold. And like Coach Jess is doing, you can grab onto either elbow here, and that will just help gravity kind of pull your torso down towards the mat. Here you can add like a little upper body sway back and forth. I will take this stretch to different parts of your hamstrings and also really let that low back release. Good, and last position here, you're going to come out wider than your mat, so walk those feet out as wide as you're comfortable, and then trying to grab those elbows down towards the ground. Your tailbone's still shooting high here. You can still have a slight bend in the knees. And just think top of the head towards the ground. And if this much overhead is getting a little bit much for your shoulders, at any time you can still tuck those hands back to the tailbone here and just kind of let the shoulders be in that restorative position. You're still getting the same stretch to the hamstrings. But then don't make sure you don't fall on your head, please. And from wherever you are, hands will find the ground. Walk those feet back together. Slight bend in the knees as we roll up to a standing position, nice and slow. You don't want to just snap up after being inverted for that long. And you guys are done.